Yeah, big job that. Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, officers, welcome along. I declare this meeting open. Great to see a full gallery tonight. We expect you all back here in a fortnight's time. Under announcements, very pleased today we had the opening of the Kelly Park Playground. The playground looks absolutely magnificent. Credit to everybody involved. This week is NAIDOC Week, celebrating, I think the theme this year is celebrating the Indigenous women. I think it's a wonderful theme, and I hope that those of us who can get along to some of the functions that are on during this next few days. And my fuel cost for the period was $70.82. Councillor Hayward is on approved leave of absence. Declarations of interest. Councillor Steele has declared impartiality interest. I also wish to declare an impartiality interest with respect to item 10.42. I am an honorary member of Rotary, and I was a member of the same Rotary Club as the applicant 17 years ago. Any further declarations, councillors? Item 7.11, minutes of the last ordinary council meeting. Councillor Cook moves, Councillor Brown seconds. All in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. 7.12, special council meeting minutes. Mover, Councillor Cook and Councillor McGuell, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. 7.13, the advisory committee roadwise. Mover, Councillor Steele, seconder, Councillor Cook, all in favour? It's carried unanimously, thank you. Councillors, we have a few requests for deputations tonight. Mr. Bairstow wishes to talk to item 10.4.1. Those who agree, please indicate. That's approved. Mr. Stephen Scott Higgins wishes to speak to item 10.42. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. Mr. Fitzgerald also wishes to speak, and Mr. John Bridgham may speak on item 10.42. Those who approve, that's approved. Thank you. 10.4.3, request by Mr. Graham Lush to speak. Those who approve, please indicate. That's agreed to. And also Ms. Del Ambrosius wishes to also speak to item 10.4.3. Those who agree, please indicate. That's approved. So for those folk, you'll be called up, invited up when we reach those items. So, and each of you will have 5 minutes time to present. Councillors, dealing with the agenda tonight, coming out for discussion 10.4.1, 10.4.2 and 10.4.3. 2.1. Any others? Someone move the balance. Councillor Cook, Councillor Steele, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. 10.2.1, someone prepared to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly, seconded. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I happily support these nominations to the BREC board. The board, I believe, has done an outstanding job in managing BREC, and I applaud yourself and the councillors for in supporting BREC in the last budget. I also congratulate the BREC board and all the volunteers for their work and the responsibilities they have undertaken on behalf of the city and its citizens in keeping this very important facility open. I believe council should always support these volunteers who manage council facilities on behalf of the city, and we should do nothing but sing their praises, support them and trust their judgment in who they choose to continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Kelly, do you wish to speak? Is there a speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to 10.4.1. Mr. Bairstow, come forward to the lectern here, please, Barry. Welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Away you go.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Unlike about 17 years ago when the council approved the tavern and no one anywhere nearby had any idea until after it was approved, we're really grateful this time to actually have been asked to comment on this issue. And a number of us did, and I hope that some of you have read what we wrote. Unfortunately, it was probably a waste of time because I see in your council agenda that in fact the fact that it's a legal entity means that it's going to happen anyway. But I just need to say that I spend a lot of time reading councillors' briefs when you're up for election, and I find them really interesting, and I read them because I'm looking for someone who's got a bit to add to the community and got a bit of community spirit, and you write a lot about that, and it's great, and you're going to improve the community. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're going to improve the community, well then gambling is the antithesis of that. Gambling, and you may not have read what I wrote, but I'd just like to summarise about 3 quick points. Gamblers are 10 times more likely to get divorced. They're 4 times more likely to be problem drinkers, and they're 4 times more likely to be drinkers, and 4 times more likely to be smokers. Now, none of those are great for our social being, and it's this council and our state and our federal government that actually pick up the costs of this. So I'm actually not sure which council we've got here tonight. Have we got the ones that say, well, the law says it's legal, so that's it? Or have we got the ones that I read about that say, we're here to actually improve the community well-being and help the community? Because it's a bit confusing. I hope that you're here for the second and you look after our community, because gambling is not consistent with a good, safe and healthy community. And thank you for the opportunity.
So I'm prepared to move the executive recommendation. Councillor McGuell, seconder. Councillor Brown. Councillor McGuell, do you wish to speak?
Quickly, Mr Mayor, I'd like to thank the comments from the speaker just then and the comments that were made in the objections, and I do move this with, I guess, a slight remorse. The thing is, obviously, the objections there were some comments about gambling and the problems with gambling, and I know too well the problems with gambling. I've a couple of friends who have been very severely affected with that, and it is a huge problem, and I do 100% agree with that. Unfortunately, we do have to abide by the law. So this is a business who are obviously going in. They've applied to us for a development application or a development approval, which is basically allowed to do. If we knock this back, they will just take us to SAT and they will win. So we don't. Our hands are tied. If we knock this back, they'll take it straight to a tribunal, and it'll cost us some money. So I would like to say I'd be standing up for the community, and you may or may not have voted for me. I hope you did, and one day we'll see again. But look, there's nothing we can do about it. I think this issue and gambling issue would be something that would come up with the state or from a federal position. I, for one, think it's horrible that they're able to advertise like they do, but in this decision, in this position, we can't knock this one back and we have to approve it. Good luck to the business owners who are trying to do something different, and I think that's what we're looking for. So, yeah, I'll be urging councillors to support this on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak? Speaker against? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, councillors, me and councillors. Look, the tavern is in a terrific spot on the Bunbury coastline, and it seems to be a very successful business, and because of the management proprietors. I've been there myself on various occasions. However, the tavern is part of the residential and community precinct area, and I cannot believe that inclusion of tab terminals are appropriate in a successful restaurant bar area. It's not that there's a lack of TAB outlets in Bunbury, they're everywhere. So I oppose this executive recommendation, and I know that we're probably bound, but maybe SAT should change its mind on moral and social issues. I may be wrong, but I cannot imagine the people who be there using the terminals are there for more than a drink, and I can't imagine family members popping up from a family meal and saying, oh, I just want to pop over to the terminals and lodge a bet, because I presume that's what you do with them, I don't know. So for all those reasons, I'm going to oppose this. Thank you.
Speaker 4, Councillor Steck.
Thank you, sir. Whilst I appreciate, Mr Busto, everything you've had to say through you, Mr Mayor, speaking through you, sir, I totally agree with the sentiments of what he's suggesting and is passionate about. I also am thankful for Councillor Smith's contribution, because that is fair and reasonable too. It is something the SAT should consider, which is impact on communities. But I also have to fall in line with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Miguel, and that is that as councillors we sometimes come up against these complicated decisions because moralistically we want to do something different than what we're having to do. And quite frankly, going to the SAT to appeal this is not a cheap exercise for the community. It is quite costly for our staff to go there, our solicitors to attend, and it is not fair for us to knowingly go down a path of causing cost to the community where money could be better spent in other places where lots of user groups are looking for money, lots of places are asking council all the time for money. So it comes down to a management decision as well, whether or not we go down the path of wasting money or using the money wisely. And in this case, we have to go with the planning regulations to use that wisely. And, you know, I get it that it's a valued business in community, but look, we are a gambling nation when it comes to places like the Melbourne Cup. And I could assume that that business would probably be going for functions on Melbourne Cup Day, and I believe that's probably why they're looking at TABs and things like that. But that aside, that's their business, what they're doing with how they're scoping their business and what synergies they're using in their business. My job here this evening is to look after the assets of the community. Yes, there is a moralistic debate, but the main debate here is, will I waste money knowingly when I know that we will lose? So I urge the council to vote for the motion. Thank you.
Further speaker against? Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I draw Councillors' attention to page 19, the strategic relevance of this theme to our economy, theme 3, our places and spaces. It says here that our goal is a thriving and dynamic economy that plays to its strengths and confidently presents to the world. It also says that we build on our competitive advantages, support innovation and celebrate business success. What it doesn't say here is that we're about to come across a community health plan. And one of the greatest aspects of community health these days in any local government authority and anywhere in the state is mental health. As our speaker pointed out, the mental health aspects of gambling are almost unmeasured in this country, although I imagine that there would be somebody somewhere who could point out the cost of problem gambling. Our places and spaces, theme 3, natural built environment that reflects our core values, and I'm quite sure that our core values are concerned with mental health. And objective 3.6, the public health and amenity of the community is protected. Objective 3.6, the public health and amenity of the community is protected. The first aspect of it is mental health, and I've already alluded to that. Councillor Smith, in her speech, talked about the amenity of the community and the amenity down at the particular tavern we're talking about. I believe, and I firmly believe, that there are places in Bunbury that ought to be free of some of those vices that humans pick up, one of them being gambling. I think at some stage the council, a worthy council, ought to stand up and say, right, okay, yes, gambling, it's prevalent. You can do it on the phone, you can do it on the computer, you can do it in a tab, you can do it anywhere virtually these days. I think it comes to a point at some stage where we need to have places in Bunbury that are gambling free, much as I've been on record about smoke free, and I also believe in alcohol free. There's nothing to say that the choice of a person to do what they want is going to be infringed upon at any time, but at some stage we've got to make sure that there's a balance. At the moment the balance is going the other way. So I'm going to vote against the executive recommendation and ask other councillors to do so also. Thank you.
Further speaker 4. Close, Councillor McGraw.
Just very quickly, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think plenty's been said, and I'd just again would like to thank the comments that were out there. And again, they're social issues, but I haven't heard an argument which has said to us how we're going to defend this. Obviously, I don't believe our officers would be able to defend on our behalf in SAT if it went to that. So us as councillors would have to go there, and I haven't heard a reason to which would be able to look at SAT and say this is going to be knocked back for this reason. So on that fact and the fact that it will end up costing a lot of money, I'd like to ask councillors to vote for this, and good luck to their business and their endeavours.
Thank you. I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's carried. Those against were Councillors McCleary, Steele, Smith, Kelly. The rest were for. We move to 10.4.2. Mr Scott Higgins. Welcome to you.
Councillors, in my deposition tonight, I will speak to adamantly oppose a variation to the visual privacy request as outlined in the RCodes. In this deposition, I'll expand on the significant impact this decision would have on my family's lifestyle, ongoing concerns of privacy, the social impact of losing the only private outdoor living area, as well as the financial impact of losing the property's marketability of our beloved renovated family home. Firstly, I must state that during the entire building process for 32 Picton Crescent, we as the adjoining neighbours have received no correspondence from the owner, builder or council outlining front or side elevations or window placements, although numerous requests have been raised as to our ongoing concerns. The consultation process has been non-existent. There has been no opportunity to object or address the design principles that may have provided alternate solutions. I've spoken to many of the councillors, and a number have asked me regarding my placement on the property and the setback in question, which is 17 metres. My answer is simple. The property was built 70 years ago, and there, for obvious reasons, I was not party to that building process. My family's lifestyle would be severely impacted due to the loss of the one and only private outdoor living area. It has been noted in the information provided to the councillors that we have 3 outdoor private living areas. However, if councillors refer to photos 1 through to 4, you will see that these so-called private outdoor living areas have significant intrusions in the visual privacy, and for this reason could no way be deemed a private outdoor living area. Again, minimal information and consultation has been forthcoming in regards to the concerns of the Kona Vision. Councillors should now be aware that within the Kona Vision is the direct view into a miner's bedroom, and I refer to photo number 5 and Appendix 1 of the Kona Vision diagram provided last week by Mr Fitzgerald in the previous meeting. Morally and ethically, this alone should be grounds, councillors, to dismiss this motion, as the privacy of a young girl, and more specific, young girl and the father is my greatest concern. Additionally, should Mr and Mrs Bridgham sell this property, there is no way to regulate who may buy the property and what their moral standing may be, regardless of their role within the community. Often cases are opportunistic and may result not from the occupant, but from someone visiting the property. Councillors, is this a message we want to send to the people who voted you into council office, and that you condone this decision and feel it appropriate to refuse a minor privacy within their own home and yard? There is the financial impact that the decision will have on the value of my property. After consulting with local real estate agents, this has been estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands. The Residential Design Code of WA are quite clear and outlined in section 7.1. They talk about visual privacy. Visual privacy is the ability to carry out everyday activities hidden from the eye of outsiders or without fear of being observed by them. Clause 5.4.1 and 6.4.1 of the RCodes, there are 4 basic ways of preventing, ameliorating, overlooking, and I might say none of these have been utilised by Mr Bridgham. Designing windows, balconies and decks to face away from neighbouring properties, especially side boundaries. providing greater than normal setbacks to achieve effective privacy separation distances, providing intervening screening, or ensuring that overlooking windows cannot be opened and are opaque or highlighted window. Again, councillors, this consultation has never taken place in any way, shape or form. In conclusion, I ask of you to place yourself in our shoes as the parents of 2 young children. How would you feel if your only available yard space and outdoor living area is now constantly overlooked by people that are unknown to you? The same people can now see directly into a young daughter's bedroom, and this invasion of privacy has been taken out of your control. I would point out we've done nothing wrong here. We did not proceed to build a property with the knowledge that it did not comply with our codes, and are now using defence that the property is already constructed. Councillors, I implore you do what is morally and ethically right and disallow this motion to have visual privacy requirements removed. Councillors and Mayor, I thank you for your time in this matter.
Thank you. Mr Fitzgerald.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors. Thank you very much for your time this evening. My name's Gary Fitzgerald. I'm a Director of TECON Australia. We're Town Planning Building Surveyors and Town Planners, Building Surveyors, and I represent Mr and Mrs Brigham tonight in regards to the item presented. Councillors, first of all, what I'd like to say is that Mr Scott Farris raises points which none of us as parents we would object to or couldn't at least look at. And in discussions with him on site yesterday, I acknowledge that. Anybody, me as a father, he as a father, anybody who has children would say, if my child's in any way affected, then I would take whatever action I could, crawl over broken glass, and we acknowledge that. And certainly my clients acknowledge that issue as well. However, councillors, that's not, unfortunately, the issue. And I don't say that in a fashion to be argumentative. I say that we're not talking about the issue in that context. We're talking about town planning legislation. We're talking about statute. We're talking about statement of planning policy. We're talking about a process which allows 2 processes for you to make a determination. It allows for a deemed to comply process, which Mr Scott Farris has underlined the key components to, and it allows design principles, as you well know. It clearly doesn't comply, arguably it doesn't comply with the deemed to comply provisions, and we're not saying that. Our argument is that it complies with the design principles. Estimates might vary, but a large percentage, if not 80 to 90% of houses now are done under design principles. As the lots get smaller, as houses get bigger, the issues become more and more under design principles. Certainly that's our experience. I'm sure that's your experience from council perspective as well. So, councillor, as I said, the issue is not that we object to the concerns raised, but I would point out in actual fact that my client has to make the comment that they do take umbrance to the suggestion that they have any intent to look into a child's bedroom or otherwise. I think that I have to say that and have it on public record because it's most concerning for them as parents and for them to have that suggested to them. That's not their intent. Councillor, they've built a house with a view to the northwest, which is over the harbour. The issue with the view to the property is, and we need to focus on the actual reality of what it is, and that is that we're looking into the front yard of the property, councillors. The property is set back 17 metres. That's not anybody's fault, but that is the reality of the situation. I could stand on the front veranda, invited by Mr Scott Farris yesterday, and could view people across the street as we stood on the veranda in front of the bedroom window in question. So the reality of this is not that we're doing, or my client is doing anything that's against the R codes. We're simply saying this is a situation where, unfortunate by the design that's on site, there's a necessity for them to have the house that they want and the view that they've paid a lot of money for, which they're entitled to basically have that access. If you look at the specifics of the R codes, the intention is quite clear. It talks about the area being protected between the front of the property and the setback line. Councillors, that's 6 metres in this case, not 17 metres, 16.5 or whatever. So to comply with those design principles for Mr and Mrs Brigham is difficult. Your 17 metres setback, normal setback is 6 metres. Therefore, it's difficult to meet the deemed to comply provisions. However, in saying that, the intent of it has to be clearly understood because there is an intent, and the intent is that you protect spaces that are for active habitable space, active habitable areas, or private open spaces. It's not your front yard, councillors. And I would challenge anybody that goes up on site there to determine that what they're talking about in regards to objections is not the front of the property. It quite clearly is in the front setback. Yes, it's well set back. And yes, I've no doubt that it's utilised. There's playground equipment in the front yard. Lots of people have playground equipment in their front yard, councillors. And the reality is that the intention of the R-codes is to protect areas behind street setback lines. In this case, we are well set back, and to maintain that as a deemed to comply provision would be extremely difficult. Councillors, in the short time available, I'd just summarise by saying your officers have provided you, your professional officers have provided you a recommendation. The comment was made earlier by Councillor in regards to abiding by that and taking advice in regards to how that might fare at SAT. What I would suggest to you is that you have professional advice that tells you it complies with the R-codes. The recommendation from your staff is that you should approve it. Councillors, we respectfully ask you to support the recommendation this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Someone prepared to move the executive recommendation?
So I move that we table this for the next round. I think that there still needs some information for the councillors to make any decisions.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Steck. I did query that with our staff, and perhaps I'll invite through the acting CEO, Mr Farnsworth, just to explain where we're at with the timing of this.
Thank you, Worship. In order to enable as much time for the landowners to speak to each other and accommodate some consultation and negotiation, which we were more than happy to facilitate, we have taken the full 60 days. In fact, we've taken more than 60 days, and it was with the agreement of the applicant that they permitted an extension. After tonight, it would be deemed refusal if you didn't make a decision, and they would then be able to lodge an appeal at SAT.
Well then, sir, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why did it get to this point that we're right on the 11th hour of a deemed refusal?
Through the acting CEO, Mr Farnsworth.
In order to accommodate the opportunity for the two parties to at least come up with an alternative design solution, we tried to work with both sides to find a resolution. It was unfortunate that we didn't get a proposal that would satisfy both the applicant and the objector, and consequently we could have determined it earlier, and we left the door open, and we invited the opportunity for the extension to buy more time. We certainly haven't delayed it. We sought to create more time. Otherwise, we would have determined it inside the normal time frame.
So, for clarification purposes, for those not familiar with town planning, Mr Farnsworth, through the acting CEO, if this matter is not dealt with tonight, it is deemed that the application is refused.
Yes, Your Worship,
Okay.
unless the applicant wishes to extend again.
Unless the applicant wishes to extend again.
That is correct. The applicant is now in the position to extend if they wish to. We could ask if you would like us to ask, but as I just said, they have given us that extension of 2 weeks already.
So, Councillor Stick, coming back to your proposal, I will entertain that, subject to, you might want to say, defer for one council round, which is 2 weeks, subject to the applicant agreeing to that.
I'm happy to move that, sir.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Smith. Yeah, Councillor Smith seconds it.
If the owner's here this evening, we could have asked them that now, because if we don't, we're still not going to make a decision. It's a deemed refusal anyway.
I wouldn't put that on them straight away, Councillor Stick. So we have a motion that this matter be deferred for 2 weeks, subject to, Councillor, just subject to the applicant agreeing to that extension. Otherwise, it's deemed refusal. Now, that's moved by Councillor Stick, seconded by Councillor Smith. You have a question, Councillor McCleary?
Yes, please. Just to what avail would that be? Could we need to add something that there will be consultation with the two people? We've got to give them an action.
Well,
what are we requiring from them to give them the 2 extra weeks?
Councillor McCleary, all parties are in the room right now hearing this debate, this discussion. They understand clearly what this is about. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Stick?
Yes, just quickly, sir. I would just invite the two parties to have a look seriously what council's position is at in this, and I would suggest that a screen does be erected for what intended purposes, but I would like the two neighbours to at least come back with a decision so council can make an informed decision. Otherwise, I'm afraid it probably might go down the path of a deemed refusal.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Stick. I would like to...
Point of order. Yeah, I take that on board. Sorry, Councillor Smith. Second doesn't get to speak on these. I'll put it all in favour. Those against? It's carried unanimously. So that matter has been deferred for 2 weeks, which is one round of council meeting, and the parties in the room, please get together and have that discussion. Thank you. (10.43), Mr Lush. Welcome.
Good evening. As the current manager of Sterling Street Arts Centre, I'm here to support the development proposal contained in agenda item number 10.4.3. I am representing and speaking on behalf of all of the following: the Volunteer Board of Management of Sterling Street Arts Centre, the dedicated and passionate Sterling Street Arts Centre staff of arts workers and administrators, the 250 members of Sterling Street Arts Centre, the tutors, volunteer staff, our funding bodies and generous corporate and private donors, and our large group of interested and involved community members of all ages from 5 to 95, and community groups who come to our centre to paint, draw, potter, sew, knit, quilt, play music, learn to dance, read, make speeches, hold meetings, raise money for charity, practice Tai Chi or display their work, as well as the general public, family groups and visitors to Bunbury who are attracted to our workshops, our fairs, exhibitions and Bunbury's summer school. We all strongly endorse the development proposal. Our vision statement declares that Sterling Street Arts Centre will be a vibrant and essential community arts and cultural entity. Our values include all members of the community will have the opportunity to feel connected and develop relationships with other community members through communal activities presented by us. We will provide innovative programs and promote mental stimulation for all community members. Sterling Street Arts Centre is a unique arts, crafts and cultural facility which, fortunately for all residents of Bunbury and surrounding areas, is centrally located on the edge of the Bunbury CBD. It is situated within the Arts and Culture Precinct of Bunbury in close proximity to the Bunbury Museum and Heritage Centre, Bunbury Regional Art Gallery, the Bricknell Music Shell and the Bunbury Regional Entertainment Centre. I say it is a unique facility because I'm advised there is nothing like Sterling Street Arts Centre elsewhere in WA, nor probably anywhere else in this country. It provides programming, coordinating, displaying, marketing and administrative support, and also employment to creative artists in a single centre where community members meet to learn and practice their interests. We are all inclusive. Community members who belong to one of the 14 membership groups or who attend the short course workshops or who attend the annual Bunbury Summer School are, as I said, from all age groups 5 to 95, all socio-economic groups, races and gender, disabilities, and of all artistic ability levels from beginners to those with experience. Our prime sources of operational funding are from the City of Bunbury and Healthway, and in all submissions for funding we emphasise the importance we place on promoting not only the many benefits to be gained by community members meeting together to pursue their mutual interest in arts and crafts, but also the social benefits gained through being part of a group of like-minded community members. There are obvious mental health benefits provided for our community members who enjoy a sense of belonging and participating in group activities. Sterling Street Arts Centre has operated for almost 50 years from the former Bunbury Infant School building, which provides 4 studio spaces, a very small office space, no reception or entrance and limited display space. There is also a detached toilet building built 70 years ago, which is dangerous in wet weather and is dark, unhygienic, has plumbing issues and is inadequate for community events such as Christmas Craft Fair and WA Day. The development proposal Council is now considering is relatively modest, low impact, the overall site, It will be mindful and respectful of the heritage significance of the site in the existing building, and it's rather well overdue. Apart from providing upgraded toilets and office facilities, the new building will add 2 additional studio exhibition spaces. At present, we accommodate 14 membership groups, and with only 4 studios available, there are scheduling limitations on accommodating all requests. Several of our members' groups already have a waiting list, as the existing space cannot meet the demand. The new studio spaces will provide much needed additional space for our current groups and will allow them more flexibility for their activities. The new building will provide Stirling Street with improved visibility to the community and passing traffic, which will promote awareness and interest in our centre's activities. Increased patronage of our centre will be beneficial to tourism in Bunbury and the region, with flow-on benefits to local businesses. The new studios will enable members groups to hold exhibitions for longer periods of time for viewing by the public, without, as is the case at present, being limited to a day or weekend at most, as any longer disrupts the usual weekday classes, workshops and members' sessions. This should also encourage more awareness and interest in the arts and encourage more community members to join in. As at present, we will continue to have studios available for hire. We offer...
Mr Lush, can you just
come
to a conclusion? Yep.
Right. Sorry. Let's go to my last page. We anticipate that the estimated 35,000 community members who currently attend the centre each year will be very excited to learn of plans to upgrade and offer more opportunities for their participation in arts and cultural activities in Bunbury. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I reiterate the support for this development from all associated with Stirling Street Arts Centre and arts practitioners generally in this area. This development will be a much needed endorsement of the well-held view that the presence of a strong arts culture in the city makes for a stronger community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms Del Ambrosius. Del, welcome along. I'll offer you the same courtesy if you run over 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. Look, at the risk of sounding like a scratched CD, I just wanted to raise some issues with you tonight. And of course I realise that what you're dealing with here tonight is simply a building on a site. So the issues that I raise with you tonight are probably going to be considered to be not relevant to the executive recommendation. But you know, all the way through this has been a very vexed issue for about the last 5 or 6 years. And if you're sick of listening to it, then let me tell you, you're not Robinson Crusoe, because some of us in the street are sick to death of it as well. Nobody denies that the Stirling Street Arts Centre requires new facilities. Well, perhaps 1 or 2 might, but most people don't deny that they need new facilities. They've been there a long time, and whether I think that you've probably put the cart before the horse and probably should have done up the old building first and then moved on to the new one is quite irrelevant to the discussion. But one of the things that's quite disturbing about this whole thing is all the way through the tonight's agenda item and all the way through the discussions that we've had, and we've had 50 million of them, it's always as if the residents are the ones that are really not being considered seriously. Even tonight, we've had someone say that the Stirling Street Arts Centre is on the edge of the CBD. Well, councillors, it is a residential area. It is a heritage precinct and a residential area. It has been a residential area long before it was the Stirling Street Arts Centre. And on behalf of the residents, can I please say to you that the most important thing is that we all exist in this street with those things in mind. The things, if you go back to the submissions, which once again I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed with, the way that some of the submissions were responded to, everybody that wrote a submission said their concerns were the traffic and the noise. coming from this establishment. And if you read the Memorandum of Understanding and the community policy from the Stirling Street Arts Centre, none of those really address those issues about what is going to happen in this building, and that is precisely what the residents keep asking. Are there any time limits? Who's going to use it? We know it's for the arts and crafts, we've got all of that. But just tell me, who's going to make a decision? Now, is it going to be more acceptable to have someone practising, say, for example, Mahler's Requiem, than having a group of young people playing the guitar? I mean, these are the things that we're not sure about. How much noise do you get? Who's using it? It has now become a venue for hire. So who controls the venue for hire? Who says this is okay and this isn't? These are the sorts of things that the residents want you to consider when you're looking at this building. You probably can't consider you are considering the building itself tonight, and I understand that, and we understand that quite clearly. But please, in your deliberations, could you please put something in place which says that the council will do blah, 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 rather than just looking at traffic management studies, which might mean absolutely nothing to us in the end. These issues are the ones. This is a residential area. It is not the CBD. It is a residential heritage precinct. And that's all we're asking, is that councillors will give that the greatest consideration when you're looking at this item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Steele, question? Sorry, let me just get this item on the books. Someone prepared to move the exec recommendation? Councillor McCleary, seconder. Councillor... Everyone moves to the edge of the seat but stops there. So, Councillor Steck, thank you. A question, Councillor Steele.
It's again about the MOU, and I know, as I said last week when I asked questions on behalf of ratepayers about the MOU, but it just that I want to make sure, because it is a draft at the moment, the MOU, and it does say, though, our advice notes are the community usage and events held at the Stirling Street Arts Centre shall be in accordance with the MOU and the community usage thing. What happens, and also it's part of our thing, the draft community usage policy and the draft MOU between the city and the Bunbury and Stirling Street Arts Centre is attached. So we all have that. But what I'm concerned about is, what if we can't get some sort of agreement of what needs to go in the MOU, what will happen to this development? Because I also now have some questions on behalf of the Stirling Street Arts Centre that I'm concerned about.
Okay. Councillor Steele, we are dealing with a town planning application. Nothing more. Nothing more at the moment. All those other issues that you've raised, they can be dealt with separately to this. And I think you are a member of the Stirling Street Arts Centre board, so you've got that opportunity to do it that way as well. Councillor McCleary, do you have a question, Councillor?
Yes, I do, Mr Mayor. So it's not at this stage to propose an amendment to incorporate what Mrs Ambrosius was saying. So
you can move an amendment during the debate, but if that's your question, you can move an amendment during the debate.
Okay.
Now I'm going to invite Councillor McCleary to speak to Councillor Steck. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, sir. Whilst I sympathise with the residents about, the traffic flow, as Mrs Ambrosius said, it has been a vexed issue, but the horse is bolted. The gate's been opened, the horse is bolted. The Stirling Street Arts Centre has been there for a significant amount of time, and it has grown, and it is now, I guess, needing council's assistance to move it into the 21st century. And realistically, we spend a lot of money on arts in this community, and we encourage arts, we encourage busking, we encourage all sorts of freedoms of art. And I would hate to go down the path of restricting the capacity for anyone to get into art of any forms in this city. And I think that it is a win-win situation, because there is capacity for people to build a career, and this is a learning centre, and we all go down the path of respecting each other and allowing each other to be able to learn and to prosper and to be good, abiding citizens. So I ask councillors to support the motion.
Speaker against. Councillor Smith, just to help you out, did you want to move an amendment at this stage?
If it's proper, Mr Mayor.
Well, let me hear your amendment,
Well,
and I'll rule on it.
I'm trying to remember most of what Mrs Ambrosi said, because essentially I agree with the executive recommendation. We've been going on too long, and this is a much reduced proposal and it needs to happen. But I'm not quite sure how to incorporate those words, and would it become 1.23 at the end of that line of recommendations?
And do you have any words to help?
I'm trying to remember what Mrs.
Can
Ambrosi said.
can I just try to assist you with
Yes,
some
please,
words
Mr. Mayor,
that?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it is, but if we can refer the MOU, that the MOU matter be referred to the Stirling Street Arts Centre Board and our officers for further discussion. And I'm really stretching this because
Yes, thank
we
you.
should be dealing with just
Yes.
the land use, not this other matter.
That's
But
fine, thank you.
so Councillor Smith's moved an amendment. Is there a seconder to that?
I'll second that.
Well, can someone else second it? Thank you, Councillor Steele. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Smith?
Just to say that, just to allay the concerns of the residents, because I do believe that this project must go ahead. It's been on the books long enough. I am confident that the Stirling Street Arts Centre management will not let out the premises for any activities that are inconsistent with the area and to the quiet enjoyment of the residents.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak? Okay, I'll put that amendment, which is addition of one. No. Look, they will be involved, Councillor Steele, that the MOU be referred to the Stirling Street Arts Centre Board for further discussion and review. Okay. You happy with that, Councillor Smith?
Thank you.
Okay. I'll put that amendment. All in favour? Those against? One against, that's carried. Go back to the original, which includes now 123, and that's Councillor McCleary, Councillor Steck. Speaker against? I'll put it all in favour. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I'll pause if any of you want to leave now.
Just for that one, Gary, I'm not sure that's an enforceable planning condition.
No, it's not.
As a separate.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, okay.
But that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kelly,
So moved, Mr Mayor.
is there a seconder? Councillor Kelly's, Councillor Steele, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I shall be brief. The purpose of the motion is quite well elucidated. It's for us to resolve to develop a policy position that governs the conduct of persons appointed to council advisory committees who are not council members or council employees. I refer to page 45 and the comments made by the officers. My view is that council does need to formalise this process because at the moment it's an unwritten process. The policy position, so to speak, is defined by current processes. Those current processes do not have policy to back them up. So we don't actually have a policy position on the appointment of perhaps the appointment, yes, although we can either advertise or not. There's a bit of flexibility in there, but certainly we do not have a written policy that provides a code of conduct directly applicable and how that code of conduct applies to people who are appointed to council committees. And I think that is a policy gap. An unwritten process is not good enough, and the last sentence here, or the last part, it says, notwithstanding the lack of recourse for the breach, officers are happy to amend current processes to forthwith require external committee members to formally acknowledge, etc. Those current processes are simply not written. They need to be encapsulated within a policy, and it's as simple as that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Steele. Just a question of our officers, if I may, perhaps through you, Mr. Acting CEO, to Mr. Galinsky. Section 5103 of the Local Government Act requires every local government to prepare or adopt a code of conduct to be observed by council members, committee members and employees. Does committee members include external members of committees?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes it does. So the Act prescribes when appointing a committee, there's about 4 or 5 different criteria for the appointment of a committee, whereby council can appoint a committee which comprises elected members only, elected members and staff, and one of those points is elected members, staff and or external persons as well. So yes, we take that as including those external persons as well.
Thank you. Right, I'll speak against this this motion on notice for that reason. We have legislation already covering this situation that Councillor Kelly is concerned with. There's no need for us to do any more. Speaker 4, Councillor Kelly.
Mr. Mayor, I don't agree with that, obviously, because I've also had a look at what this means in terms of the Act. The Act is the overriding legislation, there's no doubt about that. Every Act that I've ever seen anywhere in state government, federal government or otherwise is underpinned by policy. Good policy supports an Act. An Act is all very well and good, but ultimately it does not go into the detail of processes, it does not go into the detail about recourse either. So this is very simple. It's merely saying that if we're going to appoint outsiders, particularly paid lobbyists, to any of our committees, that we ought to have a policy to make sure that it's kept squeaky clean. It may not ever happen, but and nothing in this motion implies or suggests that there's been any breach of professional or ethical standards. Indeed, I don't know how many leaks have occurred from any of our councils in the past. I'd say it probably has happened. So what I'm saying is we merely formalise this. It's a simple policy. It is not hard work, and it gives everybody a sense of security about who is on the policy, who are on committees, how they act, and if there is some recourse to be made. Love the legislation. Good policy underpins good legislation. I ask councillors to support the motion on notice. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's lost.
Could I record those, please?
Yeah, sure. Those against were yourself.
No, those 4.
Sorry, those 4 were Councillors Kelly. Councillor Smith, did you vote for it?
Yes, I did, sir.
Councillor McCleary, Councillor Steele. The rest voted against. That's lost. Councillors, thank you very much for your attention tonight. Officers, thank you. And members of the public, I declare the meeting closed at 6:22 p.m.